Good morning, seventh graders. So I am here with week 5, lesson 9. We are in our unit Heroes, but we only have 2 lessons left of this unit. So this is our last article on Common Lit. Then Thursday we'll be doing our graphic organizer, and next week we're doing our end of unit assessment. So that's really exciting. We'll start a new unit after that, and more to come on that on Thursday, and then the week after I'll give you more instructions. But it's crazy, we're almost through our whole first unit completely online. I'm so proud of you guys for sticking through this. I know it's been a struggle to not have your teachers there to help you, but I just encourage you to come to class time because I really feel like that's the time where Mr. Longo and I can really be teachers and help you get through this together. All right, let's get into it. So we are going to read a poem called Sonnet by James Weldon Johnson today. Johnson was a writer and civil rights activist. He fought for African American rights. He was essential in forming the NAACP, which, if you don't know, is a giant organization that helps support minorities and strives for equality and equity. The NAACP is still around today, continuing that fight. So we're just going to watch this short video about James Weldon Johnson, just to give you some background knowledge.
James Weldon Johnson was born in Jacksonville in 1871. He was encouraged to study music literature early in life. After graduating from Atlanta University, Johnson became the principal of a school in Jacksonville where his mother served as Florida's first black public school teacher. He also founded the Daily American newspaper aimed at the city's black community. He studied law and became the first African American to pass Florida's bar exam. Together with his brother John, they composed many songs, including Lift Every Voice and Sing, which is known today as the Black National Anthem. Johnson was also a U.S. diplomat and civil rights activist. He wrote poetry and worked on a novel, The Autobiography of an Ex-Colored Man, which was published in 1912. In 1930, Johnson began teaching at Fisk University. He was a professor of creative literature there and wrote his autobiography, Along This Way, while at Fisk. James Weldon Johnson, an American and Jacksonville legend and Black History Month icon.
Okay, so basically just some information about him, just so you can understand this poem better. All right, so the poetic style of this poem is called a sonnet, which is also the title. This means a couple things. The main one that I want to talk about today is, there's 2 that I want to talk about today. First thing is just kind of cool. Every line ends in a rhyme. See what I did there? And then the second one is the major one today, and that's going to be imagery. Now, we've talked about imagery before in class, but I just want to remind you, imagery is a way that writers tell a story that brings their work to life. Often that's with descriptive language. We've talked about this when reading Frederick Douglass, that there are parts where he really described how he was getting whipped and talked about the blood that you would see on him, and he made that picture in your mind of what it was like so that you can empathize more with him. We're going to talk about this a little bit in a different way today. So imagery always appeals to the 5 senses. Now, if you don't know, these are the 5 senses: vision or sight, and then hearing, smell, taste, and touch. So all of the things that are going to be in imagery, we're going to try to recognize which of the 5 senses that image is trying to appeal to. So to remind you just a little bit further about what imagery is, I want you to watch this video, and then you're going to write down an example of imagery that describes your current setting. So maybe you're watching this just on your couch. Maybe you're sitting on the floor. Maybe you are outside. Wherever you are, you're going to think about what's a way, like a line that I could write about my current situation that uses imagery. So go ahead and think about that as you watch, and then I'll give you a second afterwards to go ahead and write that down.
We have 5 senses. Writers often appeal to these senses to bring their stories to the reader's imagination. For example, what sense is the author appealing to in this sentence? The author is appealing to the sense of taste. What other senses might a writer appeal to? Can you envision this moment? This is because its writer is appealing to the sense of sight. Can you hear it? This is because its writer uses words that suggest sounds. Writers also can suggest the sense of touch. Finally, writers can appeal to the sense of smell. All of these examples use imagery. Imagery appears when a writer appeals to the five senses. Imagery helps bring the passage to the reader's imagination. Which senses does this sentence appeal to?
Okay, so we learned a little bit more about imagery there, a little bit more about the five senses, and hopefully you can take a second and write down an example of imagery that describes your current setting. So if you need to, go ahead and take a pause on this video and finish that up. I was looking at this funny TikTok the other day where this teacher was talking about how she feels like she's Dora the Explorer. I don't know if you guys have ever seen that show, but she's always like, "Did you find it?" And then she waits and then she's like, "Good." That's how I feel when I tell you guys to pause the video. All right, so another thing that we want to think about is also how to determine theme in poetry. You should be familiar with theme, just like you should be familiar with imagery, but just to remind you, theme always centers around, first, what is the topic of the text? So topic is in like 1 to 2 sentences. The topic of Frederick Douglass was about a slave who escaped from slavery and became an abolitionist. That's the topic. Author's craft and development of theme. How does the author describe or engage with its topic? This can be through imagery, figurative language, tone, word choice. And in Frederick Douglass, there was a lot of imagery, a lot of figurative language that he used to kind of show really what his main theme was, which the theme statement of Frederick Douglass, we talked about this when we were in school, but basically the theme was like slavery should be abolished, and the North, I don't know, something like that, right? It's something about the North helping to abolish slavery. And so he used figurative language to really show how bad slavery was so that the North could empathize with him. So the theme statement, what is the author's message about this topic in one sentence? Now I want to remind you a trick that some people kind of fall into is it must be one full sentence and it must be a universal statement. It can be applied to everyone. So it should not be, the theme is hope. That's not a theme, that's just a word. You have to have a full sentence and it needs to be a universal statement, something that can be applied to anyone. All right. We're going to look at this poem and then we're going to look at trying to figure out exactly what this is saying. So this poem says, "Dance beneath the stars as you drink in the night. Let the thunder overtake you as lightning fills the sky. Feel the force of nature penetrate your skin. Spin the world as magic sinks in." Now, we want to think about a couple of things here. We want to think about the topic, the author's craft, and the theme statement. So if we think about the topic here, something that's sticking out to me is this idea of stars, night, thunder, lightning, nature, all of that stuff. It's kind of makes me think like the topic might be nature. Maybe they're talking about a time when they're out in nature and what happens. And then if I'm thinking about how they show me that, this is really all imagery here. It says dance beneath the stars. Dancing reminds me of like touch, like when you're dancing with somebody else. As you drink in the night. Now this is obviously taste because you can feel it when you're drinking in the night. And then let the thunder overtake you. You hear thunder, so that's sound. As the lightning fills the sky, you can see lightning. Again, that's sight. Force of nature penetrate your skin. This is feeling. Spin the world as the magic sinks in. So tons of imagery talking about nature here. Now, this makes me think, obviously, that the theme has to have something to do with nature. Now, is it positive or negative? Let's look at it. Dance beneath the stars as you drink in the night. Let the thunder overtake you as lightning fills the sky. Feel the force of nature penetrate your skin. Spin with the world as the magic sinks in. Now, to me, this word magic, it's usually used with like happy, positive things. Think about Disneyland and it's magic, something like that. It's always positive, super happy. So someone's saying something about how good nature is, how good it is for you to be in nature, feeling it, thinking about it, seeing it, smelling nature, all of that stuff. So here's what I came up with. I said the topic was nature, like I told you guys. There's imagery, dance, touch, drink is taste, lightning, sight, thunder, sound. The author uses imagery to describe what it feels like to be in nature, would be the author's craft. Then for the theme statement, hide that. Theme statement says, taking time to enjoy nature lets us experience its true magic. So again, I got to this theme statement by first deciding what is the topic, and then deciding what the author's craft is. So maybe they're using figurative language, maybe using similes, but in this case, they're using imagery, and then what the imagery actually was, and then coming up with why they would use that imagery. So the author uses imagery to describe what it feels like to be in nature. And then the theme statement is finally just taking time to enjoy nature lets us experience its true magic. And I used that word magic in this because it's also in the text here, but you don't have to do that. So that's what I came up with for this example, and you're going to have to kind of do something similar with our text for today. So for today, your annotation task. As you read, take notes on how the speaker uses imagery in the poem. We're going to head over to Common Lit to try to do that. Okay, so it says, my heart be brave and do not falter. Falter means to start to lose strength or to hesitate. So my heart be brave and do not hesitate. So nor utter more than deep despairing wail, thy way is very dark and drear, I know. But do not let thy strength and courage fail, for certain as the raven-winged night is followed by the bright and blushing morn, thy coming morrow will be clear and bright, 'tis darkest when the night is furthest worn. So I'm looking again for, as you read, take notes on how the speaker uses imagery in the poem. Okay, so we want to remember our 5 senses. We're looking for any time that the author might have used those. So my heart be brave and do not falter. So nor utter more that deep despairing wail. Now, a wail in this case is talking about like a scream. And if you didn't know that that's what wail meant, what you can do is, since this one doesn't have a definition, you would go right here, wail definition, and then click on it, and it says a prolonged high-pitched cry of pain, grief, or anger. For example, Christopher let out a wail. So then I would know that's talking about someone crying, screaming. That's some kind of sound. So the imagery here is sound. Thy way is very dark and drear, I know. So if something is very dark, then that's sight, right? If you're going into something that's dark, you're not able to see. So that's appealing to that imagery of sight. And drear I know, but do not let thy strength and courage fail. For certain as the raven-winged night is followed by the bright and blushing morn. So these are 2 sights right in a row. Raven-winged night. Ravens are referring to a bird, which is black. So as certain as the black night, we want to say raven wing night sight. And then again, followed by the bright and blushing morn. And morn is meaning morning. So the bright morn is also referring to sight here. 'Tis darkest when the night is furthest worn. We come to our first guiding question. So it says the speaker in the poem is most likely waiting for the sun to come up, experiencing adversity in their life, extremely satisfied with their life, or extremely fearful and has lost all hope. Now, poetry is really challenging to understand. Even Mr. Longo and I have been texting about this assignment because we're like, oh gosh, like we're having trouble really understanding what this is. How are they going to do it? But I really, really believe you can. And Mr. Longo and I really think you guys can do this. It's just not going to be like reading this and being like, oh, I'll just put whatever answer. You're really going to have to think about this one. You're going to have to analyze it. And here is a little trick that people probably will tell me not to show you guys, but the reality is you guys are at home, you have the internet, and I think that this is a great idea for you guys to do if you don't understand something. So if you were like, I read this whole thing, I analyzed it, I wrote down all the notes of the imagery, and I still do not get what this poem's about. Here's what you do. Sonnet by James Weldon Johnson. And then you want to look up something like, common lit. Oh, no, not common lit. How about, let's do, okay, so if nothing's coming up, let's do meaning. So it comes up right here already, analysis of sonnet. Sonnet by James Weldon Johnson is a simple, motivational poem that sees a speaker encourage his own heart to strive for bravery rather than fear. In the poem, Johnson addresses the unavoidable darkness and drear in the world. It's something that the speaker's heart as shield away from in the past. So maybe you want to click on this, maybe you want to understand it a little bit deeper. That didn't really make it clear for you. You can keep going here. They'll give you a summary, structure. They'll talk about all the poetic techniques. Then they'll analyze it for you, so they'll take it down line by line. And really, this is something that gets you through really challenging texts in high school and in college. You don't want to rely just on that for everything that you read, but it is helpful for you to use that as something to help you along in challenging texts. So go ahead and look that up. For any other text that confuse you, summary, there's a site called Spark Notes, if you haven't heard about it, that will give you summaries of famous texts. And that will help you go through these texts easier. All right, so assessment questions, I want to look for the short answer one. There's 2 for this one, so just how does the poem's use of imagery develop the theme of the poem? Cite evidence from the text in your answer. So in this one, you're going to need to know the poem's use of imagery, which you should be taking notes on, but you're also going to be able to identify what the theme is in order to answer this question. And then the last one, how does the structure of the poem contribute to its meaning? Cite evidence from the text in your answer. So basically you're talking about the rhyme at the end of each line. How does that contribute to its meaning, that it has rhyme in there? And that it's short. How does that contribute to its meaning? All right. Last thing is going to be the discussion post. So in the context of this poem, how does a person overcome adversity? Cite evidence from this text, your own experiences, and other literature, art, or history in your answer. Please answer this question and respond to one classmate. So here's your discussion post. If you notice this idea of adversity, overcoming adversity, maybe you need to look up that word in order to understand what that means, but this is kind of a clue about what this text might be about. Okay, you guys. That was kind of a long one, but I just want to make sure you guys really understand this one. It's going to be a little bit more challenging than other ones you've read in the past, so just make sure that you take it slow, look up some definitions of words, all that stuff. And come to our office hours today, Monday, at 1 to 2 o'clock with me and Mr. Longo. We will be on Google Meets. The link will be posted on Google Classroom, so be there, and I will see you guys then. Have a great day. Bye.